Perna.
No problem. Good morning, everyone. Okay, I'm still trying to figure out how I ended up after General Perkins and before General Perna. But then I found out that it was intentional that General Perna planned it this way, so thank you, sir, for the opportunity. Okay. Before I get started, there's a couple things I want to share because I kind of have a video as well to kind of help us get there. But before, I just wanted to make a couple of comments. One, I remember coming to AUSA for the first time last year about this time, and there's two things that I distinctly remember. One, I remember seeing all of the stakeholders and Army leadership around, and everyone that I talked to when they learned about my background in Navy felt compelled to say, "Go Army, beat Navy." And, and they felt compelled to ask me to say the same. So given that I had spent over 3 decades with Navy and only about a month or so with Army, I was a little troubled by that, and I couldn't quite bring myself to do it. But I stand before you today to let you know that I have been completely converted. I have been completely greened, and about the November time frame, I pledged my allegiance to the Black Knights, and yeah. Did so on social media, cost me a couple of Navy friends, but it's okay. But I think the amazing thing is the Army finally won and ended a 14-game losing streak. Yes, I think that's great. So my Navy friends will say it's because the quarterback from Navy was hurt in a previous game, and that's why we won. All of us in Army say no, it's because we played a hard-fought game. But my story has been and will continue to be is because I was greened and I came to the Army side, and that's why we're winning. So thank you very much for that one. You're welcome. You're welcome. All right. But the other thing that I recalled about my time here at AUSA was the collaboration and the opportunity to interact very openly and in a low-threat environment, I call it, with the senior leadership of the Army as well as academia in some cases and our industry partners. So for General Ham, thank you so much, and to the Army Association for allowing this forum to take place, because I think it is a great forum for collaboration, and I look forward to spending some time with you. So before I get started, I'd like to key up a quick video.
As the United States Army prepares for the nation's future in a global security environment that is increasingly uncertain and complex, we acknowledge that the world has changed and holding technological advantage is no longer assured. We have seemingly returned to an era of aggressive competition between powerful nations which threatens regional security and international order. Our enduring mission is to provide our soldiers with a decisive advantage to prevail over emerging threats in the multi-domain battlefield. How do we challenge our conventional processes? By engaging with traditional and non-traditional developers and using creative contracting and collaboration mechanisms to encourage breakthroughs from the commercial sector. Our acquisition community recognizes the need and urgency to work more closely with our joint services, as well as our industrial base and partners in academia to facilitate effective, cooperative defenses in order to keep pace with the threats environment. Whether operations are on land, in the air, at sea, in space, cyberspace, or in the electromagnetic spectrum, we must prepare now to meet the future needs of the soldier. From the alpha of ideas and innovation to the omega of fielding and sustainment, we are responsible for enhancing soldier survivability and lethality on the battlefields of today and tomorrow. We reaffirm daily our responsibility to the soldier and our commitment to design, develop, and deliver equipment to enable our soldiers to complete the mission. Just as we have always called on the American soldier, we now call on innovators like you to ensure continued soldier dominance on the battlefield.
So I thought that'd be a great way to kind of set the stage for acquisition, because I was walking through the hallway on my way over here. I was passing a lot of different conversations, and one caught my attention more than others. I was walking past a group of 3 people talking, and one of the individuals made this comment, and this is almost a quote: "Our acquisition system is so screwed up. It is awful." So I hope that this video helps convince this individual that we're on our way to making it better, and that we recognize the challenges ahead of us, and we're counting on not only you, but everybody in this room to help us get there. So many of us here today grew up understanding who our enemy was. There was a clear distinction between friend and foe. But over the last 15 years or so, that line has blurred. And it's also been complicated by the evolution of technology that has benefited both sides. So while we've been at war, our adversaries have watched us. They've learned our techniques, our tactics, and our procedures. They've learned our strengths and our weaknesses. And they have done what we do. They adapted their strategy and capitalized on what they saw as opportunities. And that is another reason why we're here today, not only to collaborate, but to make sure that we acknowledge our adversaries' change in strategy and discuss how we can regain our advantage. We just heard General Perkins set the larger context for the multi-domain battle and the future environment where strategic responsiveness will be measured in hours and days instead of weeks and months and even years, where the potential overmatch of our adversaries is real, especially in the area of unmanned aerial systems, command and control, and personal protection, where the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction by states is growing, and terrorists and criminal organizations seek access to chemical, biological, and nuclear technologies, as well as the things that they need to employ them, where our adversaries will limit our advantages by operating in domains that are more complex and more complex terrains. So there's a sense of urgency in our efforts to address the capabilities that our soldiers are going to need to have the advantage in a multi-domain battle. It's a comprehensive effort that it's going to take all of us to engage in. The Army and our DoD stakeholders, academia, and also our industry partners. So there are a couple of capabilities that we're focusing on that I think will help prepare us for this. Active protection systems for the ground. We need that to provide our ground combat vehicles, as well as our soldiers who occupy them, with increased protection from inbound armor penetrators, rocket-propelled grenades, and anti-tank guided missiles. There's the area of advanced protection systems, air, where we're pursuing the next generation of missile warning systems, and we're leveraging the Navy's digital radar warning receivers to address detection and countermeasures of threats from surface to air to air, and ballistic missiles in the 2020 to 2030 timeframe. Then there's robotics and autonomous systems, which are critical to our providing us freedom of movement, and also improving our sustainment and protecting our soldiers by keeping them out of harm's way. And there's long-range precision fires, which is providing our artillery units with long-range and deep strike capability to defeat critical and time-sensitive area and point targets. And we've all heard about the cyber multifunction electronic warfare area, where we're going to provide our commanders with an organic electronic warfare capability that dramatically improves their ability to seize, to retain, and exploit an advantage within the electromagnetic spectrum. And that's going to provide them a competitive advantage by denying, degrading, and modifying the enemy's ability to conduct command and control, ISR&T. And then there's assured position, navigation, and timing, also known as PNT. And that's going to provide our soldiers with unhindered access to trusted PNT under circumstances when the space-based GPS systems are not available or even denied or limited. And we heard General Perkins talk about counter-UAS, because we're going to need to continue to have air superiority to prevent the enemy from employing easy, low-cost intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance. So while the list of initiatives that we are pursuing to equip our soldiers with for the multi-domain battle is long and even more extensive than what I've outlined, we also are challenged by a fiscal environment that has forced us to delay capability, to stretch out programs, and in some cases even cancel them. So we have to get to a point where we have sustained funding, predictable funding, that we need to properly equip our force. And that's something that we have not enjoyed for quite some time. The other aspect of our environment is technology. Technology is global, and the competition to assess both the technology and the expertise from the technologist is progressively increasing. So we have to reach out to the best and the brightest, a lot represented in this room here today. The best minds in industry and academia and within our labs and our research and development centers. We need to be able to study and prioritize technologies that have significant impact on the way we're going to fight in the future. And that fact alone dictates that we need to do business differently. So as I think about doing business differently, there are a couple of things that come to mind. One is time. Timing is critical, because we cannot risk losing our overmatch by taking forever to deliver capability to our soldiers. And you'll hear me talk a little bit more about advanced and agile acquisition as I go on. Also, research and development is very critical, because we know that what we can deliver to our soldiers in the future is directly proportional to the amount of funding that we put into our research and development today. And then there's technology. And technology superiority is not something that we can count on either. Because of a lot of different reasons, global competition, multiple simultaneous engagements, and some may even say an aversion to taking risk, we are on the brink of being able to lose our global superiority. But there's also another thing that comes to mind, and I'll go back to it again, and that's on our budget. Funding is not assured. We've been subjected to sequestration, continuing resolutions which seem to last longer and longer each year, and overall budget shortfalls ever since about 2011. And during that time, the Army has taken significant risks in our modernization program, and it's going to take us a very long time to recover from that. In 2012 alone, since 2012, our RD&A account has declined by roughly 30%. And that's quite a hill to overcome as we move forward. So our focus has been on finding suitable new uses for the existing equipment that we have in the near term, making modest investments and delaying new capabilities in the midterm, and protecting science and technology as we go forward to the future. So I want to talk about a couple of areas where we're specifically focusing our resources. One is protecting S&T. We need to do that because investments in key technologies that will enable our next generation capabilities is very important. If we don't invest in it now, we won't be ready to capitalize it when the technology matures. These include capabilities such as pursuing degraded visual environment mitigation, pursuing future vertical lift, as well as ITEP and a couple other capabilities. We're also focusing our resources on selectively investing in new capabilities for priority areas where capability gaps have been identified, including our next generation of ground vehicles, the Armored Multi-Purpose Vehicle and the Joint Light Tactical Vehicle, which is very important to us and the United States Marine Corps, as well as our fixed-wing utility aircraft. In addition, we're also looking at reconstituting our SHORAD capability by using the legacy Avenger systems. And we plan to acquire and fill mobile protective fires as quickly as possible. That has been a key priority for the Chief of Staff of the Army. He's made it very clear that he needs that capability very quickly, and he needs for it to be a dominant capability to fill an existing gap today. We're also focusing our resources on incrementally modifying or modernizing existing systems in order to increase our capability, but also to extend service lives as well as to help sustain the industrial base. It's not lost on us that whenever we as an Army delay fielding a capability or delay the development and decrease the number of systems that we procure over time, that it has an effect on our industrial base, and we want to make sure that we balance that and assess that throughout all of our decision-making process. And finally, we're resetting and sustaining equipment returning from current contingency operations with the simple goal of making sure that that combat capability can both regenerate and maintain equipment readiness as we go forward. And recently, we've also started looking at divestment. Now, when I came into Army, we started talking about divestiture, and we had a lot of different definitions for it. The first definition I was introduced to was to divest by taking capability from one part of the Army, the active part, and giving it to the Guard or the Reserves. But we've gotten to the point where we need to look at divestiture from a complete removal of capability from the system. We have a lot of things that we have, I'll say, acquired over time. And we need to look at it because it's driving our sustainment costs and our supportability costs. And we can no longer afford to have systems around that we do not use and that are not bringing pure warfighting capability today. So we're looking at divesting the aging M113 armored personnel carriers. We're looking at the TH-67 training helicopters. And we're doing that through transferring some of it to foreign military cells. Some of it we are distributing to other agencies, and other things we're just demilitarizing and getting rid of altogether. So as you saw in the video that I showed, we view acquisition as a comprehensive process that takes us from a design of a weapon system all the way through procurement and testing, deployment, sustainment, and disposal. So our program managers have a responsibility and accountability for all those life cycles, phases, and making sure that we work closely with AMC and our other partners to make sure that what we design and develop and build up front can be sustained in the most effective and efficient manner in the end. And this is one of the reasons why the Army leadership is looking at our Big A acquisition process from beginning to end, as General Perkins stated, from how we define our requirements and getting everybody engaged up front and early. We no longer have the luxury of allowing the requirements community to set requirements, push them over the fence to the acquisition community, and then us push them over the fence to our sustainment executors. We have to come together as an integrated team and work together to make sure that the capability that we're providing our soldier is the most lethal, the most prominent, and the sustainable and affordable capability that they need. So there's a couple of ways that we can help in that, and all of you can help. For our industry partners, we are very interested and are demanding modular systems. When we're in a system where we are relying on the upgrade of existing capability, we have to make sure that the capability we fill is modular in nature. We must be able to modify it with ease and with speed. The other aspect is open systems architecture. I think that's one of the best things that has been discovered over time. Because if you look at the way we have to fight in an integrated manner, our ability to quickly upgrade capability and to integrate not only with our other systems, with our coalition partners and our other services is critical. When we look at our common operating environment, that is based on an open architecture type system. We have to get to the point where we can allow our soldiers to be able to just use apps and place additional capabilities on top of an existing framework so that they do not have to be encumbered with additional hardware and new software development. That not only makes their life easier, but it makes our life easier from an acquisition perspective because we can go with speed a lot faster than we have in the past. And that's something that we have to focus on is speed. So with speed comes the opportunity for innovation. And with that, we have started the acquisition innovation areas such as prototype and experimentation. So most of you have heard about the Rapid Capability Office. The Rapid Capability Office is a critical element of our agile and innovative acquisition efforts. They're dedicated to expediting acquisition of select high-priority capabilities to meet commanders' needs and to deter and defeat rapidly modernizing adversaries. The RCO is focused on critical strategic gaps where a solution is needed in 1 to 5 years. So if you think about the capability we have right now in our REF, where we can take commercial off-the-shelf technology right now that we can employ in combat and give to our soldiers, and you look at the more traditional acquisition systems that we have that can take us anywhere from 7 to 8 to 10 plus years to deploy, the Rapid Capability Office is intended to fill that gap of 1 to 5 years. And because they're a small, focused group, our expectation is that they will be able to take a lot more risk than we can take on our traditional acquisition programs. They're off right now with 3 key areas that they're focusing on. They're focusing on electronic warfare, they're focusing on position navigation and timing, and they're also focusing on cyber. So as we're getting requirements in from our combatant commanders, the RCO is the organization that we're going to go to try to fill those gaps while we continue to work the more robust, continuing, and enduring capabilities. The things that I am keeping an eye on as we do that is to make sure that as we fill capability, that it is still, even if it's rapid in nature and even if it's there to just fill a gap, we still have to make sure that it's supportable and sustainable. And that's why we have to keep that connection between ASALT and AMC very closely linked. Because we cannot afford to give our soldiers much needed capability that after months of using it in theater and in combat, they can't support it and it is not supportable for them. So the Rapid Capability Office is off to a good start, and they will not only teach us how to be more agile in general, but my objective and my goal is to take what they have done and what they're able to do and apply that to our more traditional acquisition programs. One thing I've learned is that a lot of the struggles and the challenges that we have, I'm not going to say that they're self-imposed, but we do not take the liberties that we can take to take advantage of some of the opportunities that are afforded us. There's some streamlining things that I believe we in the Army have the ability to do today in our acquisition arena that for whatever reason we don't take advantage of. So one of my objectives is to make sure that that's on the forefront of the mind of every program manager that we have in our acquisition corps. But not just every program manager, but every engineer, every logistician, every person in our acquisition corps, to make sure that they realize the opportunities that they have to do their business better, to do it faster, and to do it smarter. And that's why I'm also looking at focusing on our workforce. A trained workforce in our acquisition field is very critical. I've engaged in conversations with Defense Acquisition University on how we can do things differently. For those of you who've been through some of the training, you'll know that we've, in the past, across the Department of Defense, focused on certifications and making sure that our acquisition professionals are certified in their given career fields. The challenge that I've given DAU is to not focus on certification, but to focus on experience and capability. I want that learning experience to be more agile. I want it to be more relevant. I want to make sure that we're teaching our acquisition professionals to take risk and how to manage that risk, how to assess it, and how to communicate it in a way that the Army senior leadership can make the needed trade-offs and decisions that are so critical in this time. So as we go forward in how we're going to do business in the future, I don't want to leave out our defense industrial base. I am also concerned about where we are in that arena. So for all of our industry partners who are out here with us today, I'm constantly looking at your workforce as well. I know that we need to make sure that you have the ability to retain and to educate and evolve and grow a strong technical foundation of engineers, logisticians, and others. And I want to make sure that we have our supply base. Your supplier management is something that I would ask that you focus on. A lot of times as I'm looking at programs, our prime contractors and our OEMs are doing a great job delivering capabilities. But some of the challenges that we have are because of the smaller supplier base. I recognize and I acknowledge the fact that, like I said before, when we extend programs, when we slow them down, when we cut them, that causes challenges on your end. But I would ask that we continue to work together in a collaborative manner to make sure that the lines of communication remain open. Okay? That we understand the things that we are demanding of you that are causing you challenges, and that you understand what we need for you to do as well. We need to make sure that we collaborate and coordinate on the use of your discretionary funding, to make sure that we're investing together and collectively in capabilities and technologies that are going to make our soldiers capable of operating in this multi-domain battle space. It is not in either of our best interests to putting money onto the same things. So I want to make sure that we have a balanced approach so that we understand what the gaps are in technology, so that we in the Army know where you're investing and we can supplement that with other types of investments. And then there's our organic industrial base that we also need to keep an eye on, and I'm sure that General Perna will talk about that as well. But the health of that is very important. Within the Army, we have some very unique capabilities that we need to make sure that we keep a strong foundation for. capabilities that we cannot rely on, and we don't have the luxury of relying on anybody else to provide other than ourselves. So in conclusion, I'd just like to, again, encourage each of us to continue to work together. Acquisition is a key part of what we do. It is the ability and the way in which we deliver material solutions to our warfighters. But I believe we're going into an arena and a time frame when that integration across requirements, acquisition, sustainment, fielding, and even disposal is going to have to be more integrated than it has ever been. Our soldiers demand nothing less, and we should be prepared to deliver nothing else. Because our Army's force has been and will continue to be a force of choice to fight and win our nation's wars. That fact will never change. What is changing and what will continue to change is the type of warfare that we encounter. And as we adapt to that different type of warfare, we're going to have to adapt our business processes as well as our acquisition process. So we have many challenges ahead of us, but as we've all heard before, with challenges come opportunities. And I think that we're in a time frame where we have one of the biggest opportunities ever. We have the ability to fundamentally change the way we do business so that we can support the men and women that go in harm's way every day on our behalf. And if we remember that that's the reason we do what we do, I think we'll be better off for it, and they'll be better prepared to fight on our behalf. Thank you very much for your time, and I look forward to working with each and every one of you. And I think I'll take a few questions if there are some. Okay, and since I get to read them, I'll choose which ones I answer and which ones I don't. Okay, this one, question, how do we motivate Silicon Valley tech companies to collaborate or at least support development of tech needed for swarms of UASs, unmanned ground systems, I guess that is, and unmanned naval systems with distributed lethality? How to engage with startup tech companies? Okay, and this is from Tom. Tom, I think I met you on the airplane coming over, didn't I? I think I did. Oh, okay, maybe. Okay, you're not the guy I met. Okay, sorry. But nice to meet you. I think what we have to do, and I was talking to one of our industry partners about this, one of our biggest challenges with getting, I'll call non-traditional industry to engage, are the requirements that we put on them. Okay, we have a lot of things that we require in the acquisition process, like cost and pricing data. For any of you who've seen a contract, your section L's and M's can scare anybody away from doing business with the Department of Defense. But one of the things we have going under what I'll call our 50th round of acquisition reform is to try to figure out how we can streamline that. I think that we have the opportunity to get some of the tech startups engaged because we are going into their area of expertise. When you look at cyberspace, they have a lot of talent and expertise there that we're going to need to leverage. So I think if we can use our non-traditional contracting vehicles and cut back on the requirements of what we require industry to do, we will be able to get them to step up to the plate and to share some of their technology. It's no doubt in my mind at all that they're on the leading edge of where we need to go, and we must definitely find a way to leverage that. And I think with some of the reform initiatives that we have going on that we can do that. We have this thing called other transaction authorities, which is a different way to contract, which relieves us of some of the I'll say hindering things that we've done in the past with more traditional industry. And I think that's definitely a first step forward. Also, the focus on commerciality and the language that we're seeing from the Hill and forcing us and encouraging us to take full advantage of that will also be an enabler for that. The next question. Given that much of our acquisition is based and controlled by public law, is your office planning to change and get relief of some of these out-of-date public laws so we can contract things in a timely manner? And that's from Bill from AT&T. Well, Bill, if I could, just sit in my office and change the laws, I would. Unfortunately, there's this very elaborate process we have to go through in order to do that. But I will tell you that we are actively engaged with that. Every year we have the opportunity to submit legislative proposals to streamline some of the laws and regulations. Unfortunately, our history has not been very good in receiving what we've asked for. We've even gotten to the point where we are dealing with the staffers from the HASC and the SASC on a regular basis. Matter of fact, I hosted an event with them just a few weeks ago to talk to them about the things that they were looking to write into law. And I'm hoping that this dialogue, what we're trying to do is to dialogue with them up front and early to get a better understanding of their intent. Because a lot of times, the intent of what they're after is not what actually manifests itself when they write the language. I'll give an example. Some of you may be familiar with the requirement that came out to use firm fixed price contracting across the board. I did not like that concept at all, and I thought it was a great inhibitor, and it was kind of constraining. But when I talked to our Hill counterparts, what they were after was cost control. So in their minds, the best way to get at cost control was through firm fixed price contracting. So we had the opportunity to have a conversation with them to let them know that that's not the only way to get there. We can also get there through having affordability caps, which we're doing already in the Army and across the other services as well. So I'm hoping that our constant engagement with them before language gets written into law will help us be able to shape those laws and the regulations that are coming down to us in the future. So thank you guys very much for your time and your attention, and I look forward to working with all of you.